this February 9th edition of the Courier Paperboyz. I'm sports editor Doug Newhoff, and I'm joined today by our sports department MVPs, Jim Sullivan, Jim Nelson, and Nick Pateros. We got a lot of good things to talk about today, guys. Let's start with the Super Bowl. Denver 24, Carolina 10. Not what any of us saw coming, but good performance by Denver. Not the prettiest game you'll ever see, but if you like hard-nosed, hard-hitting, determined defensive football, I mean, you love this game. And Denver did what nobody else had been able to do all year. You know, they stopped Carolina's running game. They got some pressure on Cam Newton and rattled him to a certain extent. And, you know, by the end, even the Panthers' mouths weren't running very effectively.
No, although, Cam Newton pretty much put an end to that during his post-game press conference. It's kind of, in a way, complicated. In being a Vikings fan, sort of reminded me of the Vikings playing the Vikings today, because neither team played particularly well in the Super Bowl. There was that part of it. The defenses were very, very good, unquestionably very good. Denver put on a display on the likes of which we probably haven't seen in the Super Bowl before. Carolina did what it had to do. Having said all that, it reminded me a lot of Super Bowl V, which was the Dallas-Baltimore Super Bowl, where the balls were flying all over the place, there were fumbles and interceptions.
You remember 45 years ago?
I'm afraid I do.
Whoa.
Some of these things that just don't go away. And so it was not the best of football games. And the thing that puzzles me the most going away from that, the takeaway, is why Carolina didn't do more to get Cam Newton going. He ran one option play that I remember. He ran a couple of keeper plays, but they didn't really do anything to give him time to get out of the pocket, to maybe some more planned runs. And I think that really hurt them in the long run, that they didn't utilize their best weapon as efficiently as they could have.
Denver's defense, so they're all over them. I mean, remember that double pass play, they even got a sack on that, and had Cam Newton covered on that, so it just didn't seem like anything Carolina was doing was able to really hurt them. And you think of, impressive recent defensive efforts, you think of the Seahawks, the Ravens, the Buccaneers, but I don't think any of those teams went up against an offense as good as what Carolina's offense was coming into this game. Just a huge surprise with what that Broncos defense was able to do.
I think to some extent it goes back to what we've all heard people say before. I mean, the game was too big for Carolina. They didn't play like the Carolina we saw all season. And so, another takeaway that I have from that, I mean, you could say that Denver won in spite of Peyton Manning. I mean, he didn't particularly play well. He did enough, but made some key mistakes that could have been pretty costly if their defense wasn't so good. But I think you also have to say they might have won because of Peyton Manning and the inspiration that maybe he gave to the rest of those guys, knowing it's probably his last football game with the Broncos.
He got them down the field, especially early in the game, and it got them a lead. And after that, if it's possible to do so, I thought they pulled in the horns even more, excuse me, they did at the start. Well, they weren't particularly, they didn't throw the ball down the field a lot, just enough. And as time went on, they seemed to get a little more conservative, quick slants, a lot of running. And he managed the game to an extent. He threw one terrible interception. The strip sack that happens, that could be anybody back there. But he was okay, not great, not terrible. He did what he had to do.
You could say Carolina's defense was just as good as Denver's was in that game. They only gave up, you look at it, Denver scored 2 touchdowns, one was on a defensive touchdown, the other one they got the ball on the 5-yard line. And, you hope if you're an NFL team you can get it in the end zone. It might have been inside the 5 they got it, which I wondered what was Cam thinking when he could have fallen on that ball and saved the day, and he cowered away. It was kind of interesting.
Speaking of Cam, I mean, after the game, his press conference was kind of ridiculous. He shows up in a hoodie. I mean, he doesn't give anybody any answers. It's yes, this, and no, that, and then he pretty much stomps out and cuts it short. I'm disappointed to not see a guy who seems to be so starved for the love and adoration of the country and of football fans everywhere, wants to compare himself to the Peyton Mannings and all the other guys who are more or less beloved in professional football, and then he shows up and he pulls an immature stunt like that.
I think immature is the best word for it. Just before we came up here to tape this, there was an ESPN story, an interview with him, where he basically defended it. He said, "Show me a good loser, and I'll show you a loser," that sort of thing. And the thing is, if you're going to put yourself out there as a confident, a quarterback who enjoys the moment, who savors winning, who's not above talking a little trash when things are going well, I think you have to do better when you lose. I think you have to be a little more magnanimous, a little bit willing to give the other team credit, and you're the quarterback, you're the representative of your team, you're representing your franchise. I'm not sure that's the way the Panthers wanted to be represented after that game, and in some ways they weren't. Josh Norman, to name one, looked at Peyton Manning after the game, or even at the very end of the game, congratulated him. So it wasn't just, so they weren't all like that, but that's the perception the public is going to carry away from that. It doesn't make him a bad guy, it doesn't make him, Dr. Evil, if you will. He's just had a bad moment, and you would hope that as he gets older and matures, he'll learn from it.
I would hope so. I mean, I don't have a problem with being a bad loser. I'm a bad loser.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, you have a 10, 15-minute cooling off period, you get over that part, you put your game face back on, and you go out and you take care of the business that needs to be taken care of. And he didn't do that. That was kind of disappointing.
I was most disappointed about some of the journalists that defended him. As a journalist, I'm offended by that, it's not that hard to come in, maybe if you, I wouldn't mind if you cut it short, had he answered 3 or 4 questions, say, hey man, Denver had a great defensive plan, they took away what we could have done, I could have made some better throws, I could have done this, he could have expanded on a couple of questions, hey guys, I'm hurting right now, I gotta go,
Right.
and then you're fine. He doesn't have to sit there and take, 40 questions, but to do it that way and then walk away, and then, ESPN, well, obviously ESPN was not, they wrote a big story yesterday defending him, that was perfectly fine to, he typically takes an hour after a game to, cool down and come and talk to media. I mean, yeah, you got 15-minute cool down, come in, answer 3 or 4 questions, and then if you're upset, guys, I gotta go process this some more, and you can cut it short. But, he didn't even try. I mean, it was like they said, I think somebody said it was like I don't even know the exact words, but petulant behavior. He's just like,
Right.
I don't want to be here, I'm not going to be here, so I'm going to leave.
Disappointing on that level, at least. Among the other things that I guess came out of it yesterday, T.J. Ward of the Broncos said that he thought maybe Carolina's players were a little too caught up in fame and fortune and not focused enough on football. And then Wade Phillips, the defensive coordinator for Denver, came up with a little comment about a little dabble do you, but too much dabble undo you. So I thought that was kind of apropos too.
Well, again, that goes back to what we said earlier, that if you're going to put yourself out there like that, you better be willing to explain yourself later. And you better be willing to be accountable to admit it when you didn't do, things didn't go well. So there's 2 sides to every game, to everything like that, and you have to be there for both sides of it.
He wore gold cleats that said MVP on them. In the game.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep, good stuff. Let's talk a little college basketball. The biggest news, of course, is the indefinite suspension of Jameel McKay at Iowa State. Apparently something happened in practice last week. He did not play Saturday at against Oklahoma State, and will not play again Wednesday night at Texas Tech. I'm happy that for head coach Steve Prohm for putting his principles and his program above beyond all else at this point. I mean, they may lose a game or 2 because of this suspension, but in the big picture, that's not what Steve Prohm was worried about.
Yeah, I would think he did the right thing. He's been in a tough spot almost from day one, and to some degree put himself there. He suggested in the preseason to give the players a lot of leeway offensively. Defensively, he may get more involved, and I would guess some players took some liberties with that, and Jameel McKay was one of them. And I think it got to the point where when things weren't going well with the team or with McKay himself, Prohm had to do something, and we saw what the result was. And McKay has been dealing with a knee problem, but that's not Prohm's fault. Even before that, he hadn't been playing well, but that's not Prohm's fault either. I mean, here we have another case where an athlete has to sort of look in the mirror and decide that he's responsible for what he does, and McKay apparently couldn't or wouldn't do that, so he's now paying the price for it.
And hats off to Prohm, for not letting, one individual go over the rest of the team, and really it's a tough decision to suspend him, because you look at that Iowa State roster and they don't have a lot of bodies out there that they can throw out there, so it's kind of interesting that they can compete even with that slim rotation.
I do hope that they get this resolved and they get him back in good graces with the team. The last thing you'd want to see is this somehow fracture this team, because it's a good Iowa State team that has a chance to be pretty special. So I really want to see them play deep into the postseason. Let's move up to Iowa City. The Hawkeyes keep rolling along. Sunday they win at Illinois, so now they're all alone in first place in the Big Ten. Thursday they play at Indiana. Indiana's just 1 game behind in the conference standings. And the more you win, the bigger the game gets, and this one shapes up as a pretty big one for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, Indiana got off to a pretty hot start too. I think at one point they were both the two remaining undefeated teams left. Obviously, they both have been knocked off since, but Indiana, everybody thought their early schedule was a little softer, and now they're getting in the meat of it, but they're still a good team. It's hard to win in Bloomington. I still like, I watched Iowa again on Sunday, and boy, what a game they played. And, they just do everything, and so deep, and I think I'm repeating a broken record here, repeating again week after week. It's just fun to watch them play, and it seems like a different guy steps up every week and has a nice contribution. I'm still amazed about this Nicholas Baer who came out of nowhere. He hit a couple big threes. Now I recall, I do remember him playing at, I think it was Bettendorf, in the state tournament. But yeah, so crazy. I love that. I will watch that team. It's a great team. I mean, the college basketball right now in the state, everybody's, it's fun to watch.
It'd be incredible if they could win a Big Ten championship, and that's the position they're in right now. And you look at that conference and what that's been lately. I think that'd be a huge step for that program.
Yeah, and one of the great stories with that team continues to be Adam Woodbury. He's all of a sudden turned into Moses Malone on the boards, where he's pulling down double-digit rebounds per game. He's been a force. He does a nice job of running the floor, making himself available for transition baskets. He's been through a lot there, and some of the criticism aimed at him was justified. He struggled at times, and we all remember the incident a few years, or last year, I guess it was, with the eye poking, and that's gone now. He has, I think, worked hard. He's tried to improve. He's never going to be the sort of graceful, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar type. But I think he's been a very, very effective player for that. He's taken strides forward, and he has every reason to be proud of where he's come.
He's a big, strong dude who's figured out what his role is and how to help that team the best, and that is good to see. Another guy who's emerged lately, Ahmad Wagner, freshman, I believe he is, and he's a pretty athletic guy with some serious skills that has given him a little bit more depth even, so that's been good. Let's just look at this matchup against Indiana a little bit. From what I can tell, just kind of looking at stats and players and rosters and what I've seen of both teams, it kind of looks like Indiana has an advantage in the guard court, Iowa has an advantage in the front court. Indiana's a really good shooting team, 51% I think overall, 44% or so from three-point range. They score like 84 points a game. Their guards, Yogi Ferrell's 17-something per game. They've got a big freshman inside, Thomas Bryant, a very highly regarded kid who's 6'10", but I don't know that he can match up with Jared Utah's experience and Woodbury's strength. So what do you guys think? I mean, it's a pretty interesting matchup.
Well, yeah, I don't know much about Indiana this year, but I think Iowa, going on the road, they've proven they can win big games with what they did against Michigan State and some of those teams.
Indiana just lost to Penn State too, which is kind of not a really good sign for a team that has Big Ten championship aspirations.
I'm not sure how good the Hoosiers are defensively, and if Iowa can, this is one of those situations where you're going on the road and you set a tone early. If they're in good shape after the first 5 to 7 minutes of that game, if Gazelle's playing well, if Clemens is playing well, I would think that will be fine. They'll certainly give themselves a chance to win if they don't win outright. But going back to what was said a minute ago, this is a team that seems utterly unfazed by going on the road. They should have won at Hilton Coliseum. They've beaten a very, very good Michigan State team on its home court. So Assembly Hall is a tough place to go, but if you've set a precedent for winning, there's no reason why you can't do it again.
Yeah, exactly. I just think they're playing, and the fact that I think it's a mental thing too. They're playing well. They're confident wherever they go. Or confidence, maybe it's a confidence thing. Wherever they go, they walk in, they feel they're going to win, and that's one thing to be said and one thing to feel it and do it. You can sit in an interview room and say we're confident, but then you actually see it on the floor. I think you see it on the floor when they're playing. You see they're confident. They get down by 3 or 4 or 8. You feel they're confident they're going to come back real quick, and you can see it in their play.
A lot of teams are confident, but they don't know, and they think they're going to win, but they don't know how they're going to win. And I think Iowa walks onto the court and they know how they're going to win.
Yeah.
So that'll be a good one. Moving a little bit north, you and I beat Drake's Saturday, stretched their winning streak to 4 in a row. They're back to 500 in the Missouri Valley at 6-6. Wednesday night, they host Missouri State, also 6-6, I think. And then Saturday, they go to Wichita State. So big week for the Panthers if they want to continue that surge upward in the Valley standings after that sluggish start that they had. Talking with Coach Jacobson Monday, he wasn't ready to quite say they turned the corner, but definitely likes the direction they're going.
Well, I think that's it in a nutshell. They were playing much, much better than they were even 2 weeks ago, or whenever it was they played Wichita State the first time. And you look for answers, and there's a lot of ways you can go. Certainly Wes Washburn has reemerged a little bit. He's playing very, very well. Jake has adjusted the offense a little bit. You see now them running a lot of, as he calls it, passing game, a one out, 4 down set where they do a lot of cross screens, a lot of guys running the baseline, a lot of guys curling. That's really helped Matt Bohannon, to name one. Paul Jesperson's been interesting. He's shot either very well or not shot well at all, depending on what moment. And he picked Saturday afternoon second to shoot very, very well, and that turned out to be a key thing for them winning. Jeremy Morgan has reemerged. He injured that wrist against Loyola. He's feeling much better. And when he makes an impact in the multiple areas, as he can do, that's a much, much better team. Glenn Carlson's another one who's kind of come back from a minor injury. He's playing very well. Defensively, they've been very, very good at times. Jacobson talked about Southern Illinois and Evansville, especially the Evansville games. Drake, not so much. Timmer got away from him a little bit in the second half, hit a couple threes, and I'm sure that didn't make the coaching staff very happy. So they've done it a number of different ways with a number of different players. Missouri State will be interesting. It's still a short-handed basketball team. Darian Williams, one of their better players, is done for a while with a knee injury. He did not play the first time. Daquan Miller is there. He's dangerous. He's won a couple games for them at the end. To me, this should be a very, very good matchup for UNI. It really should be. All they have to do is go and execute. After that, then, they go down to a place where it's very tough to win with the Wichita State team that was rolling until Illinois State came along and knocked them off. So that's going to be a very, very big test. And UNI has a lot to play for in terms of standings, in terms of seedings for the Valley Tournament. So this is a pretty critical time for them.
How close are they to getting Thursday out of the picture? Are they a team that you look at can dodge that now?
They're very, very close. They're tied with Missouri State for 7th now. But Indiana State and I think Southern Illinois are 1 game back. So there's like 4 teams bunched. There's Evansville and Illinois State at 8-4. They're 2 games out. Now the mathematics will tell you that not all those teams are going to lose enough games to get UNI all the way up to 2nd. I don't think that's going to happen. Having said that, I think 3rd is a possibility. 4th is a very real possibility. And even 5 and 6 are in play there somewhere. So I think they're on the way to avoiding Thursday. It's just a matter of taking care of business and finishing out the season on a strong note.
The way Wichita State's playing, you almost want to be a 3 or a 6 seed
Yeah.
as opposed to a 4 or 5. It
yeah.
seems like it's them and the rest of the league right now.
Illinois State was down by double digits, I think, at
16 in
halftime.
the second half. Yeah.
And Wichita State went like the last 10 minutes and only made a couple of field goals and just had a lid on the basket, couldn't score. So I don't think you're going to see that too often.
Not really, no.
Probably won't see that again Saturday. But
No, I think UNI is, the big problem with UNI against Wichita is it's a difficult matchup. You have 2 great guards, Baker and Van Vliet, and someone, I don't remember who it was, called them once-in-a-generation guards. I think that's a very, very fair description. The other thing is that they're physical and they're deep. And that quality depth, I think, is a real problem for UNI, although, like I said, Carlson's playing better, so that'll help. But yeah, I don't foresee them going scoreless for 10 minutes, although they can certainly do that to their team. So it's going to be a tough road for the Panthers on Saturday.
You know, yeah, I finally saw them in person play last Wednesday against Evansville, and I thought, like, you hit it on it. They played very well defensively. Kept Evansville, off, one shot now. And then, like you said, Jeremy Morgan, when he had early on, he had about 10 points the first 4 or 5 minutes. I think kind of set the tone and got him going. And when he can contribute that way, give him another offensive. That takes away some pressure from Jesperson and especially Bohannon.
I love Jeremy Morgan. I mean, I think he can create his own shot. He can score from just about anywhere on the floor. He can shoot from the perimeter. He can take it to the basket. He's long. He's vertical. Just love his game, and I think they could really involve him a lot more and probably get a lot more offensive production out of him if they didn't have so many other weapons.
Yeah, I think that's been something that Ben Jacobson's been trying to work on throughout the year. He mentioned it way back in early January that they've been trying to find a way to get him more involved, and I think that it's a difficult thing to do, because you have three pretty good options already in Bohannon, Jesperson, and Washburn. You just don't know who's going to be shooting well on any given night, and I think it's tough for Morgan to figure that out. Having said that, if you're aggressive early, then you kind of make your own way, and I think he's done a pretty good job of that.
I think we need to rank dunks though too. Which one was more impressive, the West Washburn dunk against North Carolina, or that one over, I can't pronounce his last name?
Mock, just call him Mock.
Last Wednesday. I mean, those are incredible for a 6'1" guy, and he dunked over 6'11", 7-foot guy. That was
He's
that
got
was,
some hops.
That was impressive. Number 3 on ESPN, I think, plays of the day or plays of the week or plays of Wednesday or whatever they call that. Top 10.
The West is fun to watch.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little high school basketball. It's always kind of interesting as the season winds down to just kind of look at some of the top players in the area and maybe project where they might end up, who has a chance to play at the next level and all that kind of thing. So I'm going to throw some names out at you guys and tell me what you know about what they've done lately and what their future might entail. Let's start with Austin Fife up at Waverly Shell Rock.
It seems like he's been kind of quiet this season. I think he's averaging like 13 a game or so, but steady player, obviously has some size. Dad played for Northern Iowa, continuing in that family tradition. Sister, a really good basketball player and swimmer, and swims at Northern Iowa too. So I think, there's still some work to be done, but I think you look at the intangibles with him and that type of frame, he'll continue to get better too.
He's had a few really big games in the last week or 2 weeks, and I know he was slowed up a little bit mid-season by a foot injury or an ankle injury or something of that level. So I think you're just starting to see the real Austin Fife here in the last couple of weeks.
He improved tremendously from his freshman to his sophomore year. He was a fringe player his freshman year, really moved in the rotation, did a very, very good job as a sophomore. I have not seen him yet this year, so I don't know exactly where he is or where he's going, but you have to believe that if he continues to work, and he's got a very good coaching staff to work with up there, that he'll continue to make progress and be a very, very good high school player at least by the time he's done with his senior year.
Let's talk about Joe Smolt at Gladbrook-Rhinebeck now. Here's a kid who puts up huge numbers, and beyond that, I don't know much about his game.
He's a very, very good, very, very smart player. He's a tremendous shooter. He was on a veteran team last year. He was a leader, maybe not the primary one, because he had a Dinsdale kid, they had Camden Kickbush, but he certainly held his own out there as a sophomore, so he's not afraid. I think his dad is a coach down there, so like I said, he's very well schooled. What you wonder about with him is size. I think that's he's about a 6 foot, he's not particularly strong, he's not like a West Washburn type where he's real muscular. Maybe that'll come, I don't know, he's got a year left to go, but right now, if I had to guess at it, I would say that he'll be maybe a lower Division I player, more like maybe a D2.
Has he got the quickness and can he get the ball to the basket, create his own shot?
That's a good question. At this level, at the 1A, 2A level, he can. Now, whether he can translate that by the time he gets to the college age, I don't know. He's got a chance, sir, I'll put it that way.
Great shooter. I mean, you look at as many three-point shots as he's attempted this season, and he's shooting, I think, 51% on the year. So you don't see too many high school kids that have that type of range and that accuracy with his shots. So definitely one of those kids that's fun to watch. Just maybe put him in that category of a great high school basketball player, but you just don't know with his size, what the next level will entail.
And the question that comes into play with their shot is how quick do they get it off? Obviously, guys like Troy Skinner and Todd Birkenpass had pretty good careers without tremendous foot speed and size and ability, just because they could shoot the three and they could get it off. So we'll see what happens with him. Another guy who's kind of similar to in that regard, Tim Deering over at Waterloo Christian. He does a little bit of everything for them, but again, he's playing at the Class A level, and it's hard to translate what he's been able to do there with what he might be able to do at the next level.
That's exactly right, and it's a very interesting case because this is a kid who literally does everything for his team. Literally does everything. He almost sets screens for himself, and he's so involved in the offense. This is another case where you have a young man who is very small. He has tremendous skills, obviously. He can certainly shoot the basketball, we know that. And here we are. Where will his game translate to at another level? I don't know. He'll play somewhere. I think there's little doubt of that. The way he can play, it's just a question of how much stronger can he get. how much bigger he can get, and we'll see.
It's crazy the numbers he's put up this
Yeah.
season. I looked at quick stats, and I think he's among the state leaders in scoring and assists because these teams are devoting so many defenders to him that he's, got so many open teammates out there, and he's able to find them without turning the ball over. So good court vision, good awareness, just very interesting to see what he's been able to do here in his senior season.
How big is he?
He's
tiny.
about 5'11", 6 foot, yeah, not a big frame, probably 140 pounds, he's gonna, it's gonna be D3 probably for sure. And, but I think he could contribute there. I don't think he'll be the point guard, I think he'll be more of a shooting guard, but he can create his own shot. Again, that's the same thing, he can do it against these 1A teams, can he do it at the higher level? But I definitely think he could be a guy where they found him some spot and space in a 2 guard, 1-2 or a combo guard when he got to the small college level.
Couple of interesting prospects at Cedar Falls, A.J. Green and Trayvon Fagan, both having pretty good years. Where do you see these guys fitting in?
Very intriguing question with both of them. A.J. Green is only a sophomore, and he's asked to do a lot. And here we have another case where he's a coach's son, obviously very well schooled the game. He does handle the ball very well. He shoots a lot, but I think he had to, especially early on this year with the way the team was configured. I like him here, and he's not a particularly big guy, but he's grown a lot this last year. He's up to about 5'9" now, I think, and it's entirely possible he'll continue to grow. I think his game will continue to mature. I don't think we've seen anywhere near the best of him yet. I think by the time he's a senior, he'll be a very, very intriguing recruit for somebody. I don't know who yet. I don't know if it's quite Division I, but again, that remains to be seen. Trayvon Fagan is an interesting case from a different perspective. He's added to his game this year. He's got more of a perimeter game. I think that was made clear, and that's something he had to do. He is attracting college interest. They're there every home game that Cedar Falls plays. The question with him is, he's 6'7" or thereabouts, but he's still a little slender. Where does his game fit in? Can he play a 2 guard? Can he be a small forward? Is he going to get big enough to be a big forward somewhere? That we don't know. He won't be a center wherever it is he is. He won't be a 5 guy. So a lot depends on maybe what happens after he leaves Cedar Falls. Does he have that chance to get bigger? I think that'll be a real key for him. But certainly he's got skills. He's got skills, and the rest is up to him.
How do they compare to the other Trayvon that came out of here, Trayvon Wright? Because if I remember, he was a slender guy that went up to North Dakota State, correct?
Yeah, North Dakota State, now he's playing basketball professionally over in Europe. He was awfully, I think he might have been a little quicker.
Yeah.
He was awfully explosive.
That's
Trayvon Wright.
exactly right. I think he can run the court a little better than Fagan. Fagan's not bad. Fagan can run the court, but I think Wright was a little bit quicker, maybe a little bit more physical at this stage of his career, and he could certainly get up in the air with the best of them, and still can.
And Trayvon Fagan seems like, kind of like you mentioned, like a 3 at the next level. And it's interesting, when I talked to him earlier this season, it seemed like he's had interest from pretty much every level, from low Division I to Division III, live Division II there. So, I think it kind of comes down to, too, if you could be a difference maker at a D2 school or like a role player maybe at a smaller Division I, or who knows if he bulks up some in college. I think as Coach Ryan Schultz said, he's one of those guys that definitely has his better years in front of him.
Another Metro guy who's I've been watching for the last month or so with quite a bit of interest is over at Waterloo West. He's 6'9". I think his name is Amel Kuljahovic. I'm not sure I got that pronounced right, but he's putting up some really big numbers in the last several weeks against good competition in the Mississippi Valley, and he has to be starting to attract some attention.
I would think so, just because of the size. He's an intriguing story because he's made a lot of progress this year. He wasn't really even part of the rotation a year ago, and from what Cliff Baranovis has been saying, he's really bought in this year, really worked in his game, and he's much better from a rebounding standpoint. He's good around the basket, has a nice touch, but he would be very much a project, I think, going into the next level. I don't know what he has planned. I'm guessing that he might be a young man better off going the junior college route, going somewhere, working at his game a little bit more, and then seeing where he is after that.
I think I was talking with Baranovis earlier too with the preps column, and he mentioned he's one of those kids that he saw the Mississippi Valley doesn't have really a lot of dominant bigs this year, and he saw an opportunity with him, got him to really take pride in being that guy under the hoop that's getting those double-doubles, 10 boards, 10 points a game, and just kind of took ownership of that role, and he's really kind of carved out a nice niche for himself there, and I think started to attract some attention maybe later in his career just with what he's been able to do this season.
he had a huge double-double against their upset over number one Xavier, and he, what it was, like 27 and 14 or something like that. It was-
Something like that, yeah.
And then he followed it up with like 28 or 29 against Fort Dodge. I mean, this, another team, the metro area, their records aren't fantastic, but I tell you what, they're playing a pretty good level of basketball, I think.
Yeah, we've got some pretty good players, Isaiah. Some other kids from the area that come to mind, I don't know anything about how these guys play or what their game's all about, but Austin Roth of Hudson has put up some pretty good numbers this year. Anybody seen him play or?
I saw him play once. He's got pretty good size, good shooter, can go off the dribble. He actually handles the ball pretty well for a big. Also a really good football player. He got injured towards the end of their football season, but he'd been making a difference there in his senior year of football, quarterback. And then I think it took him a little bit of time to get back in on basketball, but really solid player.
Janesville's got a bunch of guys too that really put up big numbers, and they go at about 100 miles an hour. They score 80, 90 points a game. Any of those guys looking at a career at the next level or a chance to play beyond this?
I'm not sure, anything maybe beyond like a Division III type deal, you know, a small college type system. If they get in the right system, maybe they could have some fun there at the collegiate level there.
Anybody else who should be on the radar of a college program?
I would, you mentioned Isaiah Wade, and that's a possibility. He's apparently thought of, he's from Minnesota originally, came down here to live with an aunt. He's getting some looks. He's considered pretty good, was considered a pretty good player at the Twin Cities level, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Steve McGraw says that he's got a lot of work to do. He's still very, very raw. And there's another young man that may have to start somewhere at a two-year school and then work his way up. He's about 6'3", I believe.
Well, maybe a little taller than that, 6'4", 6'5".
Okay.
Yeah.
Still somewhat slender, but as we've said with a number of these guys, a lot depends on where they go after this, how much they can grow. But I saw him play against Cedar Falls, and if nothing else, he works his tail off out there. He plays very, very hard, and so that's no small asset these days in basketball.
Very, very explosive. I saw him play against the Xavier, and he made a move that was maybe one of the best dunks I've ever seen at the prep level. It basically was a back step, and he went straight up and two-handed, hammered it home. I mean, with barely a step in it. I mean, he went straight up and put it home hard. It was quite impressive dunk, and so there's some explosiveness to his game. Like you said, he goes hard, and that I think he's been in foul trouble a couple times I've covered him. So, but he goes hard, and he goes after rebounds, and he gets after it.
And of course, we all know Steve McGraw pretty well, and he could probably have LeBron James on this team and tell you that he had some work to do before he was ready to move on or whatever. So he's pretty hard on his kids and expects a lot out of them. And so Isaiah may fall into that category of somebody who has a really big upside, and we'll see what happens with him too. We better wrap this up. It's another big week in high school sports. We've got girls basketball heading into a regional competition, district wrestling this weekend. And as always, you can keep up with all the action at WCFcourier.com or in our print editions. We'll see you again next week.